So Danny, probably you could talk a little bit about what are the most common misconceptions nowadays in orthodontics in Russia and generally.
So some people do not think that they need to know or to read anything, so they just follow what they were being told.
Pseudoscientific methods are usually, designed the way that they are appealing to the general public. What we are doing during our study clubs, the format, what to expect.
So we show a case and then give the participants time to think, and we discuss the case together. How would each and every one of you treat this patient? And then finally we will show the final records.
All the cases have some inaccuracies, all the cases have some things which we would like to improve. I think the key word here is gnathology, and it is actually a pseudoscience. This is a very, very valuable book, TMD and Orthodontics, and we will have two editors of this book as our future guests. Поэтому мы можем немножко поговорить по-русски, может быть.
Да, понимаю, это немного не очень комфортно на иностранном языке разговаривать, но для нашей специальности это необходимо. Я так понимаю еще, что у нас будет челюстно-лицевой хирург Санюк. Ты с ним работаешь, расскажи нам немного о нем.
What we are trying to achieve is we are trying to, talk about very basics of orthodontic preparation for orthodontic surgery. For coming to our clinic, after 2-3 years of orthodontic preparation, and they're coming completely unprepared. If you're considering to come and to participate in our case discussions, please go and register now in order to have a 50% discount before the new year. Hi, Danny. So,
hello, Alex.
This video we are planning as sort of a wrap-up of Moscow Orthodontic Study Group activities in the past year. First, probably we have to introduce ourselves, right?
Yep.
So, Danny, could you please give a little bit background of who you are, where you work, etc., etc.
Sure. My name is Dani Yakub. I'm an orthodontist. I finished my dental program in International University of Science and Technology. This was in Damascus. Then I moved to Russia, to Moscow, where I finished my residency program. And then after that, I started teaching at the University of Sechenov, First Moscow State Medical University. So I've been teaching there for about, I think, 5 years. So I'm teaching students and orthodontic residents. And then after that, me and Alex decided to do something about improving the quality of orthodontic treatment, or maybe quality of orthodontic education in general. And
yeah. So we will get to this point later. I just also briefly introduce myself. My name is Alex Ditmarov, and I'm also an orthodontist from Moscow, Russia. And yes, for the past 10 years, I've been practicing orthodontics after the residency. And yes, as Danny said, in the beginning of this year, or was it the end of the last year? Probably. We were on those orthodontic groups online together with Danny, and at some point Danny approached me and said, like, let's meet up, let's organize something interesting in Russia. Yeah, and that's pretty much how this idea to put together Moscow Orthodontic Study Group came about.
So my initial idea before approaching you and talking about this project was that I wanted to do something that will prevent other people, young orthodontists, to go through the mistakes that we went through, or
Yeah.
that I went through at least during my
Mm.
residency. And
Mm.
maybe you also went through such difficulties. During my residency, I have faced a lot of obstacles. The most or the biggest obstacle of them was pseudoscience.
Right.
So it was a big problem, and I had no idea where to search, where to find high quality evidence. And since I know English and I am following few Facebook forums, groups, I was able to somehow find my way into the scientific evidence world, and I was lucky enough to step away from the pseudoscience that was being taught at our university. And this way, Moscow Orthodontic Study Group was started. So we wanted to do something different. We do not want people just to come, listen, and do what they are told to do. So we want to the people to be able to think, evaluate the evidence, the information that they are being given, and then work and depending on the amount of information that they got and the quality of that evidence.
Right. Yeah. I think you pointed out the exact problem which we are, trying to tackle, trying to somehow address. And the problem is the lack of high quality evidence-based information in our area. And I think we have to, go back to the history of the development of orthodontics in Russia and pretty much elsewhere in the Eastern Europe. Because during the 20th century, people around this area, during the Soviet times and in the 90s, people were completely ignorant about what orthodontics is really about. Yeah, we had some, removable appliances back in the Soviet times, but this is very, very different from what contemporary orthodontics is about. And I think it's very important to understand that, the Iron Curtain collapse, the first thing which Soviets and Russians and other Eastern Europeans faced was not, unfortunately, credible information from academia. No, scientists did not rush into the post-Soviet world in order to, educate Soviets. No, the first people who came here were those people who were interested, in expanding the market, and probably those people who were not credible enough, marginal people who are ostracized from the Western Orthodontic community. They all went here in order to teach Russians, things which were new to them. And unfortunately, given this trend, many, as you said, unscientific facts started to spread here in Russia and in other post-Soviet countries. And I think this way we're going to our first event, which we planning for the next year, titled Popular Orthodontic Misconceptions and How to Oppose Them. So Danny, probably you could talk a little bit about what are the most common misconceptions nowadays in orthodontics in Russia and generally elsewhere.
Yeah, there are many misconceptions that are, I think they are specific to Russia, but in general, the most common one is the airway orthodontics.
Right.
I think the most common one. Like, no one knows the literature, I think, No one reads or follows. This is the big problem, that no one follows the literature. So they hear somewhere, someone told them in a meeting or somewhere that, for example, extracting premolars is going to affect the upper airway, for example. There is a very small percentage of people who really know how to evaluate scientific evidence. The people who just follow the misconceptions, they are the biggest group, I think, of all, let's say, orthodontists, let's say. There's another group who try to read the literature, but they have no idea how to read the literature. So they just search, find the paper, read the conclusions, and that's it. Make the conclusions. The smallest group of all are the orthodontists who try to read and evaluate the evidence. Like, who are the authors? What's the journal? Are there any conflict of interests, etc.? So if you have the tools to evaluate the evidence, you will have the ability to properly treat your patients and avoid many problems. Another tool is the need to know the evidence. So some people do not think that they need to know or to read anything. So they just follow what they were being told. They paid for a course, they go, have a checklist of what to do for each appliance, and then that's it. In my opinion, this is where all misconceptions come from in orthodontics and in any other scientific field. The other one are like using articulators in orthodontics, using, I don't know, posturography, condylography, and these other things. They may have some benefit in a way
prosthodontics,
or
probably.
another. Yeah, in a way or form, maybe, I don't know, but it's not been proven that it works in orthodontics. So many can argue just to argue, but the scientific evidence does not support that. So this is what we want people to understand in our upcoming event, that we need to understand what does the literature say about these misconceptions. Let's say electromyography or any other my functional appliances, for example, right? So we need to see what does the evidence say about these appliances, what about these misconceptions, and shut this door once and for all.
Yeah. Another thing which I wanted to point out is that it's interesting that pseudoscientific methods are usually, designed the way that they are appealing to the general public, right? Those who are proposing all these pseudoscientific methods, they are, coming with great benefits, like you can expand, the maxilla, and this way you will be, breathing magnificently, and you will be able to, I don't know, become a sportsman, whatever. When we are limited to the real evidence, we do not sound that appealing. We do not sound that optimistic, and probably that's another issue, because pseudoscience sells well. Real science sometimes is not that shiny and marvelous. Yeah, as you mentioned already, myofunctional orthodontics is a big thing. And probably it is a big thing in Russia because it has some history in Russia, because since there were no fixed appliances in the Soviet Union, what the Soviets did, actually, they forced the kids to, do all this crazy myofunctional exercises with tongue. And we have all this old Soviet literature telling us what exercises the patients should do with the mouth, with the lips, with the tongue, etc., etc. But there is no evidence whatsoever that these exercises are really effective and beneficial. And now we are having sort of a second coming of, myofunctional orthodontics to this area. Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about our past events, about the events which we already organized in 2023. So we so far organized five offline events, four in Moscow and one in Armenia, in Yerevan. And could you please tell what's your favorite study club meeting so far?
I don't think that there's a specific favorite one.
Probably the guest which you liked the most.
Well, I don't know. I do not want to seem biased, but
Right.
all of our guests are very valuable guests, I'm sure. But I really admire Vishnu Raj because
Right.
I read his online posts on a daily basis, and I know that I'm gonna get a daily dose of information each and every time I start reading something or even seeing his cases.
Yeah, I just want to remind, or probably those of you who didn't know, we over the past year we invited three guests to talk at our events. James Waden, who is the co-director of the original Tweet Study Club in Arizona, Dr. Vishnu Raj, who is a great clinician from the state of Texas, and Dr. Mauro Cazzani, who is the immediate former president of Italian Orthodontic Society. Yes, and I double that what you said. I also think that Vishnu's clinical cases are just brilliant, and I also following him and learn from him a lot on a daily basis.
Right.
Yeah, but I also want to point out the lecture of James Waden. I think it was very, very educational, and it was about the very fundamentals of our profession, the very fundamentals of treatment planning, diagnosis and treatment planning, the very fundamentals of biomechanics, and he showed some cases which were in retention for decades, probably after the treatment, and that's very valuable. And another thing, what we are trying to achieve with our study club, I think, is that we are trying to remind people or specialists about basics of our specialty, because it seems that now, as you said, people are coming about with all these complex methods of diagnostics, all these overly complex methods of treatment. It seems like the more TADs you're using, the better it is. But the thing is, very often the case, simplicity is the key, not overcomplication. And sometimes it seems that people are just following all these new trends, and in the same way, they're forgetting about the very, very basic fundamental issues of our specialty. And I think what we're trying to achieve with our study club is to bring back this orthodontic fundamentals. And probably you can tell a little bit about what we are doing during our study clubs, the format, what to expect if you come to the next study club.
So the word study club explains it, I think.
Right.
So I don't think that there is a similar thing here in Moscow, or even in Russia.
No.
Yeah, so
there's no analogy.
Yeah, so we have a small group, maximum 25 people. Anyone can join, whether you're a resident or a professional orthodontist. So I think it's beneficial for all. So we start by reading some lectures, and during our lectures or presentations, we have time for discussing clinical cases that we present. So we have both the theoretical part where we discuss the evidence, where we show clinical cases, and we give also time for the discussion. So we show a case and then give the participants time to think, and we discuss the case together. How would each and every one of you treat this patient? And then finally we will show the final records, so full records for each patient, each clinical case, from start to finish.
With superimpositions,
Yeah,
which is
and
very
sometimes we,
rare nowadays.
well, yeah, it's rare. I don't think even in the most famous courses that people go to these days, they do not show full records. So this is the advantage. So we have discussions, scientific evidence, and full records, and
Yeah.
valuable guests.
Right, correct. And in the beginning, you said that when you just started your orthodontic journey, you made, as I made, we all did, made some mistakes. And I also want to add to what you just said that, you know, showing our clinical cases, we also show our mistakes and our blunders and everything, how it really was. So we are not afraid, you know, to show the full treatment sequence with mistakes, with you know, ways how we overcame these mistakes, etc., etc. So it is very important, I think, that you can come and you can learn from the mistakes of others. And it's also important to realize that all of the cases are imperfect in some sense. All the cases have some inaccuracies. All the cases have some things which we would like to improve, etc., etc. So yeah, we are not afraid to show you, you know, the whole thing, how it really was, and to talk with you later about other ways to treat these cases, and what could have been done differently, and so on. Right, so let's go ahead and introduce some of our guests for 2024.
So we have, first is James Andrews.
Could you tell a little bit about him?
Yeah, well, the first time I got like familiar with the name James Andrews was on social media. So he is one of the
he's one of the exceptions in social media world, because generally social media is not the, you know, the source of credible orthodontic information, but he is an exception.
It's great that we can see him active on Instagram and on Facebook, because this requires a lot of time and effort to be able to provide these high quality information for an international audience. And I'm glad that he's going to be joining us for during our next event. Yeah,
and also what I want to add, since the event is about, you know, misconceptions and ways to oppose them, James Andrews is very open about, you know, his opinions on rather marginal orthodontic trends, and he's never shy to, you know, expose some really problematic trends in orthodontics. Right. Our next event will be dedicated primarily to the topic of temporomandibular joint disorders and orthodontics. And we have two great guests, Charles Green and Dr. Sanjivan Kandasamy. Sanjivan is from Australia, and Dr. Green is from the United States of America. I think I first came across these individuals, and actually they have a little bit bigger group of authors who have been writing about this topic for, I don't know, the previous 20, 30 years, probably. I first came across the article in the American Journal of Orthodontics from 2009, and the article was titled "The 10 Myths of Gnathology." Have you read it?
I think I did. Yeah,
I also about 8 or so years ago, I also translated it into Russian. So those of you who, well, I believe all of you speak Russian and read Russian, so you can go and Google and you can easily find my translation. And the original was published in 2009 in the in the American Journal of Orthodontics. And since then, they published, of course, many more papers on this subject. And the thing is that the subject is really, really big and important.
Yeah.
Controversial, but it is important. It is important. And I think the key word here is gnathology and, what it is. I don't know if we have time to cover this, but just to put it briefly, it is actually a pseudoscience. It was first developed in the US in 1920s. And back in the day, people specialists thought that there is some ideal position of the condyle inside the glenoid fossa. And with orthodontics or with some prosthodontic work, you can reach this ideal position, and this is the ideal position for every patient, and we can reach it. But then in 1980s, when we got MRI and when we got CBCT, we got all these research papers later on, which showed us with CBCT and with MRI methods that actually healthy individuals have various positions of the condyle inside of the glenoid fossa, and we should not try to establish some unique ideal position of the condyle in the glenoid fossa if it's not causing problems to the patient. There is no need to get involved.
Right,
so
exactly.
I think this is just very briefly the position of the authors. This book is just next to me. This is a very, very valuable book, TMD and
Right.
Orthodontics. The book has, of course, it has the chapter from very well-known specialist in this area, Jeffrey Okeson from the US. And yes, this is a very valuable source, and we will have two editors of this book as our future guests. The book was translated into Russian language, but again, my belief is that we have to read a literature in the original. And probably we should elaborate a little bit about linguistic issues. Can you talk a little bit about why we decided to organize our events in English?
So the main thing is that literature is written in English. There is no way to read a high quality literature without knowing English. And you're not gonna find any recent article that was translated into Russian. I don't even know any websites that translate the American Journal of Orthodontics, for example. So this is a problem for people who are not reading literature in English. So this was a way of motivating people to get used to orthodontics in English. So yeah, I know many people are afraid of speaking a foreign language. And it's not that comfortable. So first few times people, I think, were a little bit afraid. Yeah, and try a
Right.
little bit of yeah.
Right.
But I think the terminology is a little bit like similar to the Russian language, so there will be no problems, I think, understanding. Um, but
And
anyway, it's gonna be
yeah,
benefit.
I just want to add that, of course, I'm a native Russian speaker, and um, my English is not that good, probably. But the thing is, then I was in the residency. I just realized, it dawned on me that there is no other way to learn orthodontics rather than to learn in English. And then I was at my second year in the residency. Uh, I just realized that all the Russian sources are telling me some nonsense. There are no high quality translations. There are very many, just as you said, pseudoscience, pseudoscientific information. And the only way is to switch 100% to English. And orthodontics was not practiced here for the entire 20th century. Orthodontics wasn't here. And we are just in the very, very beginning of the development of orthodontic infrastructure here. Yes, probably there are some more advanced countries in terms of orthodontics, like Brazil, for instance. Brazil has a nice journal of orthodontics. In Germany, they do have a nice journal of orthodontics. Probably learning about orthodontics in German or Portuguese would do, but learning orthodontics in Russian, no, it's just a recipe for disaster. You shouldn't do it. I would not recommend it to do to anyone, and I think it is really unethical to try to teach orthodontics in Russian language. But as I said, my English was not great when I was a resident, and it took me several years to advance in the English language. So we are welcoming to anyone, right? And for people who are not um, comfortable enough with their English, they can come and just listen. They can come and do not take part in our discussions, but just listen as a first step. Поэтому мы можем немножко поговорить по-русски, может быть, для
Да,
тех, кто
можно.
для тех, кто не очень хорошо говорит пока по-английски, но хотел бы прийти и хотел бы начать уже переходить на англоязычный формат своего развития в ортодонтической специальности. Что-нибудь
Давай.
добавишь?
Да, вот я хочу сказать, что да, стесняться не надо. Я сам тоже не... У меня родной язык не русский, да, даже не английский. Да, понимаю, это немного не очень комфортно на иностранном языке разговаривать, но для нашей специальности это необходимо. Мы можем получить очень хорошую информацию, качественную информацию от авторитетных людей, которые с нами будут каждый месяц или следующее у нас в марте, да, первое, да. Я так понимаю еще, что у нас будет челюстно-лицевой хирург Санюк.
Да. Это... Мгм.
Ты с ним работаешь, расскажи нам немного о нем.
Shall I do it in English or in Russian? Whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So yeah, since it won't be only him, but also another very famous and important guest from the US, let's switch back to English. So we decided to organize an event dedicated to orthodontic surgery. And actually, there were a few requests from people on social media to do it. And I asked Dr. Sinyuk, who is one of the most prominent orthodontic surgeons in Russia, and I had a privilege to work with him in his clinic. And together with him, we are also inviting a very, very famous American orthodontist, Dr. David Sarver. And I really do hope that many of you know the book by William Prophet, Contemporary Orthodontics. It is considered to be, the Bible, the landmark text of orthodontic specialty. And the last 3 editions, David Sarver was one of the editors of this book, together with Prophet, Fields, and Larson. And he also spent a lot of time working closely with orthodontic surgeons. I have been working in orthodontic clinic with Dr. Sinyuk for the past 5 years. And yeah, I also have some, ideas and information to share with you about orthodontic surgery and about orthodontic preparation to orthodontic surgery. So I personally will be talking about very, very pragmatic things, such as classic ways to decompensate cases, class 2, class 3, like the bread and butter of orthodontic surgery for the orthodontist. I will talk about classic extraction patterns. I will talk about, mistakes to avoid. I will talk about, most critical issues during pre-surgical steps. I'll talk about the position, the importance of the position of the second molars. This is very important. And then Dr. Saver is going to talk about, first of all, soft tissue paradigm. And he also wants to cover such things as rhinoplasty, heloplasty, and other procedures which are often coming together with orthodontic surgery. And Dr. Sinyuk will, I believe, talk about what he is expecting from the orthodontist in terms of orthodontic surgery, in terms of orthodontic preparation to orthodontic surgery. And, just coming from experience working in such a clinic, I can tell that, unfortunately, very often the case, we are seeing patients from other clinics, from other orthodontists, from other cities and towns who are coming to our clinic, after 2-3 years of orthodontic preparation, and they're coming completely unprepared. No decompensation is done. There is no negative or positive overjet. And, such patient comes over and he or she says, like, I've been in treatment for 2-3 years. I now want a surgery. And there are 2 solutions. Either you remove all the appliances and start the whole thing from the beginning, or you perform a surgery, but you're performing a surgery on unprepared dentition, and the result may be compromised, right? So I think, with this event on orthodontic surgery, what we are trying to achieve is we're trying to, talk about very basics of orthodontic preparation to orthodontic surgery.
Yep. All right, so let's remind everyone about our Fridays live. So we're gonna go live on Instagram, 29th of December. It's gonna be 12 p.m., correct?
Right.
Yeah, Moscow time. 12
Moscow time. And yeah, we also have to say that we are currently having 50% discount for all of the upcoming events, for all of the upcoming study club meetings. And if you're considering to come and to participate in our case discussions, please go and register now in order to have a 50% discount before the new year. As for our live stream on Instagram, if you have any questions about our study club meetings, please, you'll be able to ask them on Friday. And if you do have some questions to our future guests, please also join us on Friday, and you'll be able to leave a question, and the question will be asked during the study club the next year.
Sure. To our also international followers, we will also have an event to be planned in the future for our international followers. It's going to be an online event, so you can join us and ask some questions, maybe give some suggestions. We will be happy to have a discussion with you on Friday.
Yeah, cool. So thank you, Denny, for doing this. And yes, we will be joining everyone soon on Friday.
Yep, see you on Friday. Goodbye.
See everyone. Bye-bye.